How do you predict luxury condo success in a city changing as fast as Miami? Well, 2 years ago, we made a prediction. We reported on a brand new condo, at the time, the Mandarin Oriental in Brickell Key. Today, we have it ranked as our number 2 best condo in Miami. But this video is talking about the rise and success of this condo instrumentally to represent what's been going on in Miami as a whole. And I'm going to talk about the present, and I'm going to talk about the opportunities of what you should buy today. Now, as I'm standing behind, you can see there's a construction site. A few months ago, the Mandarin Oriental Hotel on Brickell Key in Miami was imploded, taken down after years of sitting here and great service to the city. Now we see a new tower rising up into the sky. 2 towers by the Mandarin Oriental Swire Properties, 5.2 acres, a 227-unit tower with a hotel tower in front with 121 hotel residences and private residences on top of that. Now, what we did 2 years ago, I said this building was really going to shake the ground and really move the needle when it comes to reshaping a luxury market. And what Miami's experienced over the last couple of years has the rise of significant, I call them micro pockets, but micro areas that have serviced the ultra luxury buyer. And it's this buyer who's really shaping the luxury market and showing us the highest levels of appreciation across the entire system. Now, as we stand here, this building's gone down, and in 2030, we will see a new tower here in its place. And what's important is that to date, this building has sold 75% of the units. $2,700 a square foot is what it averages right now, and there are several lines that have completely sold out. Now, what's even more impressive is that to follow this building, we're seeing the building right next to it, which looks like that's going to be bought, that's also going to be torn down, and that's going to be replaced by another ultra luxury tower. What we're standing on right now is a micro market that is going to be as protected and valued as we believe Indian Creek Island or Fisher Island or any of the other pockets, because it's home to a whole new breed of wealth that's migrated down from the Northeast, whether it's Chicago, New York. Just down the street, you're going to have a Citadel Tower, which, as of recent announcements, is going to see another 2 million square feet of space taken up by the Citadel Group. So thank you, Mamdani, for that effect. But as I'm standing here today, it's really showing you how fast things are progressing. The skyline, as impressive as it is today, is going to massively change. But what was really key was 2 years ago, I said, this is the building to invest in. This is the building that if you're going to drop your money in, it warrants your investment. And with 75% of the building sold and several lines only having a handful of units left, less than what I can count on one hand, we were absolutely right. But it's not just enough to gloat and talk about the past. It's about to look at the present and look to the future and give you, the audience, the eyes to the next opportunity. Where is that going to be? Whether it's the Mandarin or another building. And I still believe there are very good deals to be had at the Mandarin. And very importantly, properties that if you purchase today, they are so unique, so special, that they're irreplaceable in the wider optics of the market. And so as a result of that, their values will keep rising. Now, behind us we have Brickell. And right now, just to give you some quick numbers before we move in and get into the granular levels of this building once more for the third time, the ceiling of this market right now is around $2,500 a square foot, a sale that I recently accomplished in the Four Seasons, which is, you can see just off in the distance over here. That was previously held around $2,000 a square foot. Now at $2,500, you're talking significantly around a 25% bump in value. And there are other examples throughout the city where we've seen some real bumps and jumps in the values of ultra luxury, large scale, private residences in a resort environment. And this is really where the buyer is focusing their attention. So now you see the location, you can see the views around you, you can understand a little bit about what this is about. And those who don't know, pick up the phone and give me a call. I'm going to move inside, we're going to talk through the model, and we're going to point out what are the best remaining units to focus on, why, and what you should do next. And then we're going to move to the future and predict what's going to happen over the next 4 years. 12. 12 is the number of units that I've sold at the Mandarin Oriental over the last 2 years. maybe more than any other broker in the city. But what I've learned from that is considerable. And what's been fascinating to see this sale and this building compared to all the other buildings that I've traded throughout Miami has taught me a great deal. And I'm going to share that with you. The first thing that I've learned is that all my buyers have looked at this as a primary residence. And when we reflect back on this tower's success so far to sell 75% of the units, there is a statistic that's come up. Speaking to the developer, the director of sales, 70% of the buyers who have bought in the Mandarin are US buyers, so they're from North America, and they've been buying as their primary residence. This is a massive shift from the traditional buying model that we've seen in Miami for so many years, and particularly in Brickell. It is the exact polar opposite of what we see many, many unit owners in Brickell do, which is buy a unit, rent it out, draw income, view it as an investment property. And those buildings have lived and died by the rental market. This building, to my mind, is one of the first buildings to truly focus on the luxury end user. And the buy-up has really shown us and really signaled to us very clearly that this is a real market with real legs that has real demand. Now, I'm going to take you through the lines and the units of what's available and what's left, because there are some great options. And in the process of all the deals that I've done, we've negotiated specific contracts. We've really looked at some of the specific variables within the units to make sure that our clients get what they want and how they want it. And we work very diligently to make sure that the payment schedules have worked in their favor. Now, if you've watched my other videos about new construction, and if you watch the best and worst new developments of Miami, which is one of our recent videos, you'll notice as you listen to it that I talk extensively about buildings that have a really hard time getting off the ground, breaking ground and selling enough units. This is what you call a tried and tested model. With 75% of the buildings sold, you can clearly know that it's going up, it's going to happen, and it's really going to deliver what they say it's going to deliver. Because now they have the cash, they have the groundbreaking, and they have all the variables that meet the requirements for a safe bet. Let's get into the lines. The last remaining units for this line, the most popular line in this building over the last 2 years has been this line here, the 01 line. Now, as you move up to the top stack, the 01 line, it's sold out. Basically, there's like 3 units left. They're in reservation. Some may come back into the process. This line here, the 02 line, there's only a few in this line. Certainly in the upper stack, there's only a couple of units. I was here yesterday, my client bought a unit, and in the process of actually negotiating the deal, another unit in the same stack went into contract, went into reservation while we were in the middle of our meeting. It's unheard of to imagine that a plus $10 million unit would move so fast and so quickly and get to the point where there's almost nothing left. But it does give us reflection, or it gives me reflection on how this building's worked. The building is what we call a top-down sale. So the 2 penthouses at the top have actually traded. They were both $50 million each. Then there are the lower penthouses. Like 7 of the 10 of those have sold. There's 3 left. Then in the next stack, you have this third stage, second stage, and first stage, or first stack, second stack, and third stack. The third stack, of course, you've only got a couple of units left. The second stack, and these top ones are big. These lower penthouses are nearly 6,000 square feet. The stack 3, they're 4,600 square feet. The second stack, those ones are around 4,000 square feet. And then into the lower stack, those are all sold as well. They're in like the mid 3 to 3,500 square foot range. Those are all gone. With so few left, the next obvious play that everyone's going to focus, I think, their attention on is going to be between a couple of lines in this building. The 03 line, which sits right in the middle here, and those start from around 7 million and change. And then as you come across to the back of the building, you've got the 4 line as well at the back, and there's another variation of a 3 line as well. As you move up, you start to clear a lot of the buildings in Brickell. If you look at the skyline behind me, you'll notice that there aren't many buildings that have this kind of height. So it's not only going to clear those buildings, but it's also going to clear a lot of the buildings which sit on the north side of the island. So into the north side of the island, you've got buildings like the Courts, and you've got Carbonell, you've got Asia. It's actually going to be over the top of those. So you're going to have some really amazing views. And we're actually going to show you something which within the developer deck that we have video footage showing a rendered creation of what the units will be like inside. So as you look up on the screen, the O2 line, the O1 line, you can actually see some of how these units feel as a real buyer. Of course, we can get back into the finishes and we can finish off on that. But suffice it to say, there's 56 units left in this tower. There's a good number of options, but they are moving so incredibly quickly that even before this video comes out, we could see entire stacks being completely sold out. We do negotiate all the contracts for our clients. We do know these lines, we do know these view corridors, but most importantly, we look at how it stacks up into the wider market. Brickell as a market is only one of the many neighborhoods that we cover, but this building sits in a micro pocket that is competing against other micro pockets. It's no longer, in my belief, a neighborhood versus neighborhood conversation. It's a pocket versus pocket conversation. So whether it's a South of Fifth pocket against a Brickell Key pocket, against a Coconut Grove Bayshore Drive pocket, or it might be against a Surfside pocket, it's no longer the entire neighborhood that we're dealing with. It's these ultra luxury pockets, which is also what we see in the single family market with places like Indian Creek Island and Gables Estates. Let's move on to now the next player. Now I'm going to get into the North Tower. This is a previously undisclosed, unexplained part of the project, and this may be one of the first videos to really get into this particular tower. Now, the previous hotel had over 300 units that were in operation. Now we're down to 121 units. The density has significantly dropped, and to add to that element of the hotel, from the 19th floor all the way up to the 31st floor, you have residences. Now, they range from 2 bedrooms all the way up to 4 bedrooms. And what's really interesting to see within this is that this is still early pricing in those. These have just recently been released. So the same conversation that I had with buyers 2 years ago when we were first launching this. And I remember at that moment, I was selling units at somewhere around $2,200 a square foot, somewhere between $2,000 and $2,200 a square foot. And now it's $2,700 a square foot. But in the same period of time, I've seen massive transitions in other markets where I've seen dollar per square foot significantly rise across the board for luxury pockets. Within this now, the entry level that you can get into this tower is around $4.5 million for 2 bedrooms, around 1,550 square feet-ish. And then from there, you can go up into 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms, and they can range all the way up to about 3,100 square feet. What's really interesting is that because these are now launched fresh into the market, the dollar per square foot for these units is significantly less than it is for the South Tower. Admittedly, it's slightly in a different location, but it's good to understand what you get for your money relative to what the original tower was selling at. And I think part of that has to do with the early stages. So from 19 all the way up to 31, you're going to have a whole deck of residences, and they will have their own private elevator. So you won't have the hotel experience, you'll have a private residence experience. Every building, every luxury building that's ever been built in Miami that succeeded, whether it's Park Grove, 87 Park, Continuum, Apogee, you name it. Well, they have several things in common, but geographically, they're all in very unique locations that really can't be replicated. The other thing they have in common, resort living at scale. Again, this is what this project delivers. But the reason it's special is because as busy as Brickell is and will get in the next 4 years, these views won't change. They will actually only improve. But what's important to understand is that demographic shift, and it's the movement into this market that is what I'm really explaining to my clients. When you have an introduction of extreme affluence coming through, commercially speaking, into a market, you have buyers who will work within these organizations, whether it's Citadel or another hedge fund. And a lot of the people that I'm dealing with, when I'm reflecting back on my buyers, they are obviously very affluent. They're more mature. They're looking at it as a primary residence. It's not the only property that they own, but they need to be able to lock up and leave and travel. But they want a really luxurious experience in a very accessible to shops and restaurants setting. And this is what this product is delivering. Never before have we actually seen that in Brickell. In fact, almost anywhere in Miami at this kind of scale. So what I would advise, if you're interested in this condo and you'd like to know more about the opportunities, pick up the phone and give me a call. I'll walk you through the remaining units across the main South Tower. I'll talk to you about the opportunities in the North Tower. I will compare it to the existing product out there in the market, which, as mentioned before, right now is the Four Seasons here in Brickell at $2,500 a square foot. If you compare it to the new luxury product throughout the rest of Miami, this is still a deal. If you look at my best and worst new luxury condos, new construction condos across Miami, you'll notice that the equivalent buildings or equal buildings at this level, the ones on the beach, are running significantly higher. The Four Seasons in Coconut Grove that I mentioned, they're at $3,000 a square foot, and there's only 10 units left in that entire project. If you go to the beach and you look at Rivage, or if you look at any of the other buildings, including like the new Four Seasons, for example, and we look at Ocean Terrace, and we look at Paragon, you've got units starting from over $4,000 a square foot, and a number of buildings starting at $4,500 a square foot. Land is the one thing they're not building any more of, and since they built this building on a site that they've owned since 1979, they've been able to sell this at a price point that is, I think, impossible to replicate. It's actually the reason why the next site that will go up at the Asola building, which is located on the north side of the South Side Tower, is going to be coming in, I believe, at a higher dollar per square foot than those. And that's going to mean that that's going to become the most expensive building to purchase on the island. And as this ecosystem changes, it will continue. So now we've come full circle. We've taken you through the entire building, the North Tower, the South Tower. We've explained what's left available in the project. We've talked about the growth and the value appreciation of the building. We're going to get into the future. As we move forward through to 2030, we've got to imagine what's going to happen next. And a large part of our work is the predictive analysis of what's going on within the Miami market. So we're going to take a step forward and we're going to try to project what these values could look like by the year 2030 and whether or not they're worthy of your investment. So let's look forward to the year 2030, because this is where the predictions get interesting. As we sell through this year, and again, it's been striking to see the number of transactions that have occurred across the ultra luxury market in Miami. I'm looking at Brickell differently to other markets. There are two phenomena at play. There is buildings like the Mandarin Oriental. There's a building called the St. Regis at the far end of Brickell. And there's even actually a new building going right up in front of us here called the Nobu, 619 Brickell. A large number of units in buildings across the urban core are still, in my belief, concerning as purchase, concerning for resale, because there is still a movement towards selling a product that's ideal for the rental market. Small units that will be bought by investors to then sell out. Typically speaking, when new buildings are brought into the market, around 25% of those units come up for resale when that building is finished. And the reason that happens is really simple. It's because the investors bought it early, bought it to try to make money, to capitalize on it. They never, ever had the intention of actually living in these units. And we've seen this with the Aston Martin, and we've seen this with a number of buildings. Now, that works great if the rental market can support those units and there's demand for that at the required rental return. However, if the returns are not met, and you see a large number of units come back into the market, and you see a high level of replaceability with alternative buildings, you will have a legitimate problem. I've said it many times and I still believe it. In fact, I believe it more strongly today than I did even 2 years ago. The product that's going to survive in 2030 is going to be the ultra luxury product, designed at scale for end use, for end buyers on large footprints. That is what's going to last through the eras. And as we move forward, land is becoming harder to get hold of, it's getting more expensive. But what we do know is, even when we look into the last 20 years and using the Condo Geeks data that we have from our software analytics, we can pretty much count the best condos down in Miami on, well, I think probably less than 2 hands. And as we move into 2030, I think we're going to see still very much the same. Maybe it's 2.5 hands, but it's certainly probably not much more than that. And it's important to recognize that the replaceability of these buildings is going to be extremely constrained and very challenging. Not just for the virtue of building more, but the process of acquiring the land to build this product. there are tried and tested developers. There's the Four Seasons, there's the Mandarin, there's other really well-established developers out there, but there's also a concerning number of new developers who do not have the best track record. And again, this is what we talk about in our best and worst. But what I really want to impress upon those buyers out there is that in 2028, in the Brickell market, we have something called the 2028 cliff. And as much as developers talk about these ultra luxury buildings serving these ultra luxury migrating wealthy buyers, I believe that a number of these buildings will not be bought up and are not being bought up by wealthy end users. They're being bought up by tier 2 and tier 3 buyers who are hoping to ride the waves of that ultra luxury wealthy buyer success that we're seeing. So it's very important, as I believe, that in 2028, we're going to see a lot of units come into the market. That will be in that 25% resale category. And if you look at optionality in Brickell right now, in 2028, if we assume the same number of resales as we've had this year, and if we look at buildings that were built post-2010 for sale in Brickell in 2026, we have 730, right? If we know how many new units we have coming into Brickell in 2028, of which there's around 1,300, and we take 25% of that, we have 350. 350 into 730 is about 50%. So we could have a 50% bump of resale inventory in the year 2028 for what I would call middle of the road product. Now, Mandarin's 2030, it's a totally different level. And there will be some other exceptions as well. But this is really important to understand these horizons as we move forward. The other buildings across Miami, whether it's the Four Seasons, whether it's Paragon or Avage, whether it is the new Four Seasons in the Surfside or anywhere else in South Florida, the limitation of the ultra luxury product is very scarce. And if you look right now, as we stand in 2026, we have a significant number of those ultra luxury buildings that make our top 10 that are somewhere between 75% and 90% sold. That means in a couple of years from now, I don't believe we're going to have much optionality for buyers. Now, I know there are new projects coming. I cannot tell you what they are on camera, but I talk to the developers, I talk to the builders, I hear what's going on the street. If you would like to know the ultra luxury buildings that are going to come up into the market that will be announced in the next couple of years at this level, please pick up the phone and give me a call. I think you're going to be quite surprised by what I'm going to tell you. For the remaining inventory, please pick up the phone and call me, and I'll talk you through the remaining inventory in the ultra luxury buildings. And I will honestly tell you whether it's worth it. I'm going to tell you worth it based on my predictive market analysis, which, and here's the big announcement, I believe by the year 2030, we could see a bump as much as 30 to 40% on appreciation for the values of ultra luxury product. I'm talking both homes and condos. Why? Because the inventory supply is the inventory supply is extremely constrained. I do not see a huge amount of new options available to buyers. We've had a really phenomenal run, and I think right now we're really running out of road when it comes to this ultra luxury product. So eyes will move towards the resale, whether it is an Apogee, a Continuum, a Park Grove. And actually, when we talk about our best and worst buildings, we give you an option for a resale alternative if you don't want to wait or if you can't find the product that you want. But product is still out there, but we don't have long. So please pick up the phone, give me a call. I'll talk you through the floor plans, the prices, the resale market, my predictions, current analysis, forecasting, and everything else in between. I'll even put you in contact with previous clients. You can chat with them and you can understand initially how we work. I hope this video is helpful. Again, we have experience here. We have over 60 new condo construction projects discussed within our website, within our YouTube channel. We have the podcast. We look at the contracts. Please look at our podcast where we talk about contracts. We talk about branding and the branding mirage. Please watch that video about branding mirage. Watch my other videos. Go back and stress test, as we do, what I've said in the previous years. I've been doing this since the year 2008. So it's coming up for 20 years of selling product across Miami. Thank you for watching. Please pick up the phone and give me a call, and stay tuned for another David Siddons Group video coming soon.